All righty then. How many of y'all have been to treatment before? How many of y'all have attempted a 4-step before? 75% of people who come to a treatment center like this and do a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step stay sober. 85% who don't get loaded again. Now, do you want to be a 75% or 85? 75% of people who come in a place like this do a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step stay sober. Now, how many of y'all have been to treatment before? Did you do a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step? 85%. Did you do a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step? You did. Okay, where did you go to treatment? Okay, and they explained the instincts to you before you did the 4th and 5th step.
Yes, sir. They weren't as thorough as you, but I can honestly say I did 4th, 5th, right screwed up this after that.
Look, I'm telling you, if you're sitting in here, it won't be you cannot do a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step. If you don't, it will be a will not. Now, we're going to get into the 4th step today. It's going to take us about 2 days to get through it. Okay? I want you to turn your big book to page 63. Where's your book? You forgot it?
No, I left it.
You left it in the lunchroom. I bet you never would have left your crack pipe in there. If you had a big old bag of cocaine, would you have left it in the lunchroom with these guys? No way. Okay. All right, you gotta listen up. The other day we told you that this book to you is like written in. It's a book of, so most of y'all don't really get it. It's gonna break down the 4th step for you. Now, step 4 is the first action step. What we're fixing to try to teach you in steps 4 through 9 is how to do a good and effective 10th step. That's what we're fixing to teach you. Now, I want you to remember this number, okay? 4. I don't want that. Okay, look up here. 4. What step are we on? The 4th step. You're going to do 4 inventories in the 4th step. Each inventory has 4 columns. So the number you need to remember is 4. Now, the 4th step, you're going to do a resentment inventory. You're going to do a resentment inventory, a fears inventory, a harms inventory, and a sex conduct inventory. How many inventories is that?
4.
4. Each one of them have how many columns?
4.
4. You're going to get to that. Now, I went to treatment 2 times. The first time I went, I did not want to be there. Now, I know none of y'all in here are like that. The first time through treatment, do you think I did a thorough and honest 4th and 5th step? I did not. This is what my 4th step looked like. I had about 1 page of resentments. I had about a half a page of fears, about a half a page of harms, and I had about 10 pages of sex conduct. So when they looked at that, I'm sure they went, he's full of Shit. Now, fast forward 2 years, everything is gone. I've lost everything. I'm back at the treatment center. They put the 4-step papers in front of me again. This time, I had about 12 pages of resentments. I had about a page or two of fears, about 15 pages of harms, and about a half a page. If you do this thorough and honest, the bulk of your inventory should be resentments and harms. If you do it thorough, you do it honest. Now, a lot of questions are asked of me about the 4-step. People say, well, what if I can't remember it? Well, then you can't fucking write it down. If it's up here, it needs to go on paper. If you can't remember it, it can't be bugging you that much. But if it's up here, it needs to go on. Now, how many of y'all, this is sort of where you balk? And the 1 or 2 things you don't want nobody to know that you did or it happened to you, you won't talk about that. Now, we're going to start today. We're going to finish it up and we're going to show you how to actually do a. Now, I want you to get your packet in front of you that was handed out to you. So the ones that some of y'all didn't have this morning, the packet. Packet means more than one paper. Go. Let me see that. Go to this page. Now, that is a 4-step inventory sheet. Now, which ones do y'all have? The sex one. Look up here and listen. If you learn how to fill out a resentment inventory, you've actually learned how to do the other. The only thing that changes is columns 1 and columns 3 and are the same on all of them. Now, if you look at your sheet, column 3 is the instincts and column 4 is the defects of character. Look, this right here, from right here to right here, that's column 3. That is, and then from here to here is column. Now, if you learn how to do one, you've actually learned how to do the other. They're the same, except columns 1 and 2. Now, put that up. Page 63, the 5th sentence from the bottom. This part of the book, they're still on step 3. It says this was only a beginning, though it honestly and humbly made an effect, sometimes a great one was felt at once. Now, about 99.9% of people who make the step 3 decision, nothing happens. It's just to do steps 4 through 9. The way you carry out step 3 is 4 through. Now, step 3 said, made a decision to turn what? Bill and over to the care. Now, if you turned it over to God, you turned it everything over to God, that's what a priest or a monk does. They give away all their possessions, sell them, give them to the church, and they put their whole life into God's hand. Are they asking you to do that? No. Look, we do not want none of y'all to become nuns. I promise you. Mm-hmm. None of y'all are going to become priests or Buddhist monks. What kind of What kind of vehicle do you drive?
Sure.
Fuck, I'd say like a Ferrari if somebody asked me. Look, if you brought your car to a mechanic, are you giving that mechanic your car?
No,
Are you signing the title over to it?
no,
Are you putting it in the care of his hands?
yes,
He repairs the car and he puts it back in
your name.
your hands. And he says, if you drive it right, keep the oil change, keep it tuned up, it'll work just like
Brand new.
it's supposed to. Now, what you're gonna do in steps 4 through 9 is put it in the care of, he's gonna repair your ass. And then put it back in.
Your name.
And if you drive it right, get tuned up, keep the oil change, you're gonna work just like you're supposed to. Now, most of y'all get to the mechanic, but you won't give him your car. So what are we doing in 4 through 9? We're simply putting it in the care of God's hand. God does not want your will. That's why he gave it to you. If he wanted it, he would take it like. What he wants you to do is use it the proper way. And the proper use of self-will is to conform it with God's will. All right, back in the book. It says, after I make this decision in 3, next, I'll launch out on a course of vigorous action. The first step of which is a personal. Now, how many of y'all are real good at taking everybody else's inventory? How many of y'all can spot shit out in somebody else like? But when it comes to taking your own inventory, how many of y'all are blind as a bat? Now, the old people, that would be her.
Thank you.
Don't mention it. They say, if you point the finger, look how many are pointing back. In the program, we say if you spot it, got it. The only way I can see something in you is if it's been within
Me.
or still in me. So when you talk about somebody, I know none of y'all do, call it gossip or character assassination, and y'all are worse than they are. When you talk about somebody, you're telling that person you're talking to about you. What you doing? So when people come up to me and start gossiping or character assassinating somebody, I'm going, now this jackass don't know it, but they telling me how they are. How many of y'all need help taking other people's inventory? You have arrived. You are good at that. Now, when somebody has a little spiritual awakening or personality change, they get good taking their own inventory. Now, people who take their own inventory don't stop. The reason they don't stop is guess what they see every day? Just how sick they really are. And if they see that, they would not stop. People who don't take their own inventory think they have been rendered white as snow. And they think everybody else has got the issues, not them. All right, back in the book. Top of page 64. So our decision. Step 3 was a vital and crucial step. It could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been. Now, they just told you what the first action step was. Now, how many of y'all have ever said this, felt this, thought this? I have God blocked out of my life. You don't have him blocked out. You got him blocked in. Where's God? How many of y'all have a bunch of resentments on top of God? How many of y'all have a lot of guilt and remorse on top of? How many of y'all have a lot of fears? So do you have him blocked out? You got him blocked? Now, how do I remove the blocks? 4 and 5. Now, people like me, once I do this, I get the blocks moved. Guess who starts directing me loud and clear again? For me, I got to keep new blocks from blocking him back. And I do that with step 10. That's what 10 says. Continue doc. Now, what I continue to do every day, what step 10 is, it's repracticing 4 through 9 every day. I just call it step 10 now. But what step 10 is 4 through 9 all balled up into 1. Now, what we're teaching you is the kindergarten of step 10. So it should make sense to you. This is what we're really trying to teach you, how to do this effectively for the rest of your life. If you don't do this, and you don't do this, you will never know how to do this. Look, I'm telling you, what else do you have to do here? Except 4 through? Now, when you came last time, did you do it thorough and honest? The 4th and 5th? We both know you did. That's what I just said. Did you? Did you? 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 No, that fucker behind you. Yeah, you. But how many of y'all come in here? We tell you what to do, and you go, I'm not going to do that. If you're not going to do this, this won't work. I'm telling you, it won't work. Now, what else do you have to do while you're here? What else? Did you come for the horseback riding? Did you come for the swimming lesson? So what'd you come for? You didn't come to do this. This won't. Promise you it won't. All right. I want you, don't close your books. Don't lose your spot because it'll take you the rest of the class to get back to it. You got to listen, Linda. Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, he's the one who picked up the pen and put pen to paper. He had a lot of help writing the book, but he's the one who took the pen, deciphered all that information people gave him, and put it on. Now, you've got to understand Bill's writing style. If you don't, the big book will go. Whoop. Bill was a Yankee up on the East Coast. Don't ask me what it is about Yankees, but they thought if you used the same word twice, it made you sound dumb. So Bill uses a bunch of different words that mean the exact same thing. When it comes to God, he uses terms like creative intelligence, czar of the heavens, higher power, spirit of the universe. They're different words, but they mean God. Another one of his writing styles. He's going to try to teach you something by something you already know. Now, they had a carpenter that walked this earth thousands of years ago. Do you know his name? Yeah. The way he taught people was through parables. He taught them something by something they already knew. When he taught the carpenters, he told them stories about carpentry. When he taught the fishermen, he told them stories about fishing. When he taught the prostitutes, he told them stories about money. Now, he tries to teach you something about something you already know. Now, he's going to compare a personal inventory with a business. Now, who in this room has never run a legal, legitimate business? You never have. What would happen if a business didn't take regular, thorough, and honest inventory of themselves? What would happen to him eventually? It crumbled. Now, she's never run a business, yet she knows that. So he's going to try to teach you something by something you already know. He's going to compare a business with a person. Now, a business will go financially bankrupt. A person will go spiritually bankrupt. Now, spiritual sickness has certain signs and symptoms that tell you you got it, just like the flu. If you had the flu, you went to the doctor, what would be some of your symptoms? Would you tell him I'm running fever? Huh? I'm nauseated. I got the shits. So you would tell him your symptom, and he would say, I think you got the flu. Now, signs and symptoms of someone who's spiritually sick. They're full of resentments. They have a lot of, and the guilt and remorse, eating their lunch. That's signs and symptoms that you're spiritually sick. Now, I know none of y'all in here have resentments. I know none of y'all in here have guilt and remorse, do you? And I know y'all don't have a fear in the world. Now, those signs, those symptoms, if we take care of them, we can recover. Now, tell me your first name again. Ashley. Where are you from? Ashlyn? Like Ashlyn. Okay. Monroe, right? Okay. Let's say Ashley opened up a little boutique in Monroe. And she's selling purses and jewelry and blouses and all kinds of shit. And they have another boutique that opens up. What's a city close to Monroe? West Monroe. Let's say another boutique opens up in West Monroe. And every day, her nose is always in the other boutique's business. What would happen to her business? Would it suffer? How many of y'all's nose is always in somebody else's damn business? It ain't never in your business. So what happens to your business? It is suffering. Now, let's say she orders some person and they come in and she hangs them up on the shelf and they flying off. She can't keep them. What would you do? What would you do? What? Order more. Why? Because they're making your ass some money. Now, she orders the second batch, hangs them up. They flying off the shelf. What would you do? She gets the third batch. When the third batch comes in, the purses that's been flying off the shelf are there, and they send her a new batch of purses. So she hangs them both up. Now the new purses are flying off the shelf and the old ones are just sitting there. What would you do? What? Order more of the new ones that are selling. Now the ones that are just hanging there, what would you do with them? Would you mark them down promptly and almost
Give 'em away.
give them away? Because they taking up shelf and not making you any. Now, how would she know what to get rid of and what to order more of? A thorough and honest inventory. How many of y'all got some shit sitting on your shelf ain't nobody buying? You keep trying to sell the shit and your asses went bankrupt. Now, we're going to go back into business. So we got to put some shit on the shelf that's going to. Now, when I came in here, what was sitting on my shelf wasn't nobody. They were up to here with my shit. And I kept trying. If you keep trying to sell unsellable goods, there's no way you can stay propped up. Now, how many of y'all, some of y'all are not old enough to remember this. The economy, the stock market, it went belly up. And a lot of people lost a lot of stuff. Now, they had a bunch of companies. They were taking inventory, but they weren't being thorough, and they put a lot of shit down there that they didn't have. And the shit that they actually had, they wouldn't put it down there. They call it cooking the books. Not cooking dough, the books. Now, when somebody cooks the books, a business, can it stay propped up for a little while?
Temporarily.
Yeah, but when the truth finally comes out, it's a disaster. Now, when we put the inventory papers in front of you, did you cook the books? Now, did you stay propped up for a little while? But when shit came out, it fucking was a disaster, wasn't it? Wasn't it? Look, if you want this to be permanent, you got to quit cooking the books. You got to get thorough and now. One of the things I did not want nobody to know about me, my family is very big in the Catholic Church. My mother worked for the church. My sister does right now. My brother-in-law does. I got some little nieces and nephews. I call them the grand fucking poopas. They hand out communion and shit with the priest. They got me a job working at a church doing maintenance. I went, started the job. I was the model employee. Y'all know how we do. I got them to trust me. They give me the keys to the kingdom. I start taking their tools. I go pawn them. I smoke them up in crack. I go back and get the tools, put them back. Nobody knows any better. That lasted a couple of months. Till finally I wasn't going back to get the tools. You know how we do. Now, the little priest finds out, calls me in his office. He says, I'm not going to call the police. I'm not going to tell your family. The little bastard showed me so much forgiveness. Talk about guilt and remorse eating my lunch. Now, I did not want anybody to know that. It was very humiliating. Now, when I do my fourth and fifth step, thorough and honest, the first thing that went on my fourth step on the harm's list was what I just told you. Now, where I went to treatment, they put you in this room when you were finished with your fourth step. Somebody came in, another member, recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous. that you didn't know, and they heard your fifth step. I'm sitting in this room with my fourth step. The door opens up. This guy walks in. He's about this tall. He's about this big around and black as an ace of spades. And I went, what the fuck is this? Now, I'm tall. He's short. I just came off the stem fast diet. I'm skinny. He's fat. I'm white. He's black. I'm going, what could he possibly tell me about myself I don't already know? This guy helped me more than anybody ever did. Now, I'm going to show you how God has a funny sense of humor. Not only was he a recovered member of Alcoholics Anonymous, he was an ordained minister. And I'm going, great. That's just fucking great. He has the big book with him, and he has another book called the Bigger Book. And he says, I want you to tell me which one of these is eating your lunch the most. And I pointed to stealing from the church. And he starts laughing. And I went, hey man, what the hell are you laughing about? That was hard for me to put that down there. He says, Kevin, do you think you're the only ones that ever stole from the church? I said, no, I'm one of the few. He says, no, you're not. Now, before I finish the rest of the story, we're going to go around the room. Look, I don't need your damn life story. I just need you to say yes or no. That's all you have to do. Watch your shit. Say yes, or no. That's all you have to say. You ever stole from the church?
No. No.
Yeah. At the same. Madison's heard the story before. That's why he said, yeah. Look, he turns to a spot in the bigger book. And it basically said you're supposed to give 10% of everything you earn to the church. If you don't, they consider it stealing. Oh. So I know ain't none of y'all gave 10% of everything you've ever made, not to the dope man, but to the church. So, am I the only one that's ever stole from the church? Now, I'm not trying to make light of what I did. What I did was, what I'm trying to tell you is, if you don't put it down there, you're going to tie the fifth step taker's hands. They're not going to be able to help you. Now, this is what he tells me. He says, God has already forgiven you a long time ago. He's waiting for you to forgive himself. Now, when I looked at it like that, what you need, Marion? Is this who you're looking for? Okay, back up here. Now, if I wouldn't have put it down there, would he have been able to show me that? Would I have been able to see it differently? Would the guilt remorse still be eating my lunch? I probably wouldn't be up here. But would you think you're the only one that's ever done it? You're not. That's how self-centered you are to think that. Now, since I have been in the program called Alcoholics Anonymous, I have heard over 300 fifth steps. And I quit counting about 10 years ago. I've heard a lot of fifth steps. That's where I sit down with somebody who has their 4-step and we do a 5th step. Not one time has somebody said something to me where I went, no shit. Nobody has ever, what are you doing? Nobody has ever dropped my jaw because I've either done it myself, I've seen it done, or I've heard about it. You're not going to drop anybody's jaw, I promise you. Now, how many of y'all sitting in here? Don't raise your hand. Watch this shit. Don't. And y'all have 1 or 2 or 5 things you don't want nobody to know. You did it or it happened to you. And I'm telling you, the shit you don't want to put down there is the shit that you really need to put down there. All right, back in the book. Says, our liquor was but a symptom. So we had to get down to causes and conditions. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step
4.
a business. Here he goes. He's going to compare a business with a person. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes taking a commercial inventory. Different word means the same thing as business. Commercial, business. Different words that mean the same thing. If you don't know that, somebody doesn't spot that out to you, the book will go right over your head. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact finding and a fact facing process. Now, scoop this, sit down right there. You want to come sit on? No, he's good. Okay, look up here. If you take a business, and you put it here, and a person here, I want you turn your big book to page 59. Now, it says it's a fact, what? Finding and a fact facing. That's what a business does. Now, read step 4 loud. Just you.
Made a searching and fearless moral inventory.
Okay, it says made a searching. A person makes a searching. Fact finding and are the same thing. Different words that mean a business fact finds, a person searching and what? Read it. Read it again.
Searching
And fearless. Now, a person does a searching and fearless. Fearless and fact facing are different words that mean
the same thing.
if you don't understand that, the book will go. So this book written in Japanese, it's a book about algebra. So you have to have somebody explain it to you. A business fact finds and fact faces. A person searches fearlessly. Now, stay where you're, don't go off that page. Stay there. Get back in the book, everybody else. It says it's an effort to discover the truth. Now, a business, what they do is get down to the truth about their stock in trade. A person searches fearlessly. Now, moral means the same thing as truth. Different words that mean the same thing. All right, go back to where we're at now. Okay, back in the book. it says it's an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods. Now, how does a business find damaged and unsellable goods? They do a thorough and honest inventory. How many of y'all, we've given you the opportunity before and you won't? It's not that you can't, you won't. Now, you may never ever get this opportunity again. This may be it for you. Because look, I've seen people come in here and not do it. You got to bury them. Or they end up in another institution for quite a long time. This may be your last opportunity to do it. Some of y'all, it's going to be your first and. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, she cannot fool herself about values. Now, who is the owner of your business? You are. How many of y'all have been fooling yourself? You think you're something that you're really not. And you come in here and you want everybody to see what you think you are, and you know deep down you're full of, that's what you know. And every time you get a glimpse of what's really sitting on your shelf, you go, boom. Because you don't want to be who you really are. Now, I had somebody tell me about a week into this, why don't you start being who you really are? You ever start being who you really are, you know who you ain't gonna want to be? Who you really are. See, how many of y'all, you don't want to be who you really are? That's why you put on an act for everybody. If you would ever start being who you really are, you know what you would do? Change. Because you put on an act so good, you should have already won about 5 fucking Academy Awards. How many of y'all, when y'all around one group of people, you're one person? You get around another group of people, you're somebody else. You get around a third set of people, you forgot who you were with the other fucking 2 sets. Now you become somebody new. Be who you are. Look, if Mother Teresa came and sat in one of these classes, I would not change a thing. How many of y'all, depending on who you with and who you're around, who they get? When y'all not with us, y'all in y'all's houses, how many of y'all the real you starts coming out? But if somebody's watching you, oh yes sir, oh no sir, yes sir, do you want me to do this, sir? Fuck no, I want you to be who you are. How many of y'all do that? How many of y'all, somebody's watching, you will do the next thing right. But if nobody's watching, how many of y'all the real you comes out? If somebody's watching and you do an honest thing, just because they're watching, you're actually being dishonest. And how many of y'all will hide a bad motive under a good one and say, I'm a pretty good old chap? Back in the book, it says we did exactly the same thing with,
Or like,
so I do the same exact thing a business does. I took stock, honestly. First, I searched out which drug in my makeup caused my failure. Is that what your book said? What's it say caused your failure? The flaws in your
Makeup.
flaws, defects. Different words, same thing. Now, how many of y'all, if you're still convinced it's the drugs and the alcohol, and now you're sober, guess what you ain't about to look for? The flaws in your makeup. Because most of y'all go and think it's the drugs and the alcohol. Sober. Fucking sober. And nothing really ever. And when we do put the 4-step papers in front of y'all, the ones of y'all still think it's just the drugs and you're sober now, you go, there is no way I'm doing this shit. Now, you may stay sober for a little while. You will not remain that way. Now, it says, being convinced that self. If you're not convinced of that, there's no way you will do steps 4 and 5. It won't happen. The fucking Red Army couldn't make you do it. It says, being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We consider its common. Now, self will manifest itself through resentments, harms, which make me suffer from guilt and remorse and fears. Now, it says resentment is the number one. It destroys more alcoholics than anything. Now, I don't know about you, but if resentments destroyed more alcoholics than anything else, I might want to learn something about resentment. A resentment means to re-feel. How many of y'all will take a resentment, little baby resentment, and by the time your ass is finished with it, it is a great grandfather. And every time you replay it, it looks worse. And you make it worse. And after you get finished with it, it's nothing like what actually happened. How many of y'all watch football? Have y'all ever saw a wide receiver go over the middle and they throw him a pass and the safety just lays his ass out?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, shit. And the announcers go, let's watch that again. So they replay it. And the second time it looks. The third time the announcers go, let's watch it one more time. And the third time you see it, it looks worse. That ain't good enough for those announcers. Then they go, let's watch it in slow motion. So they play it a fourth time and they slow it down and you can see the pain in his face. So does it look worse?
Yes.
And then they go, let's slow it down one more time. And the fifth time you see it, it looks worse than when it originally happened. How many of y'all do that? You'll take a resentment and replay it over and over and over and over. And by the time you finish with it, it's nothing like what actually. Now, if resentments are the number one offender, you might want to learn something about resentment. Now, resentments, you can have healthy resentments or unhealthy resentment. And the reason resentments destroy more alcoholics than anything else, because most of y'all's are unhealthy resentments. Now, let's say I'm sitting on my front porch and I'm sipping me some iced tea. I'm not drinking, I'm sipping iced tea. My neighbor comes out of his house He paints his house, cleans it up, plants him some fucking little roses and shit. And I go, sipping that iced tea, and I go, you son of a bitch. You got my shit looking bad now. So I'll wait for him to go to bed that night, and I ease over there, and I rip all those little roses up. Spray paint his house up a little bit. Now, the next day, I'm going. Fuck. Now, did I get a resentment?
Yes.
Did I do? And now I got about the repercussions. Now, we're going to take the same situation. We're going to use a different response. Neighbor comes out, paints his house, plants those roses and shit. And I'm sitting there sipping that iced tea, and I go, you son of a bitch. You got my shit looking bad. But this time, instead of reacting, I paint my house. I plant me some petunias. Now we got two houses on the block that look nice and neat. So would that be a healthy resentment or unhealthy?
Healthy.
Any situation, you have the ability to respond one of two ways. And if you respond in an unhealthy way, that's nobody's fault but yours. How many of y'all do that? These unhealthy resentments just dominate your thinking. How many of y'all sitting in here right now? You got one or two people, maybe 5 or 20, that you resent. And if we said their name, it would change your whole outlook and attitude upon life. I want you to tell me one person that you resent the most. What's his first name? What? JR? JR, 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 JR. Look, how many of y'all got one or two people that if anything comes up with them, they control the way you think? If somebody controls the way you think, they control the way you act. Because what follows your thinking is your actions. And the most of these resentments y'all have are with people you can't stand. And they control you up. I can take some of y'all and bring you anywhere I wanted to. From first base to center field, back to the pitcher's mound. And your ass would go. And when you figure out where I took you, you'd get mad at me. And you came voluntarily. How many of y'all do that? Y'all let people take you anywhere they want up here. Now, I had a contract with the Department of Corrections in a penitentiary, a real penitentiary, not jail. In a penitentiary, the people in there, they miss a bunch of Christmases. If you're in jail, you only miss maybe, depending when you went in. Now, they had a guy in there. He had already missed about 20 Christmases, and he was going to miss about 30 more. We start bringing all this in there, just like you get. He starts taking the steps. About 2 years into it, he comes up to me one day. He says, man, he says, I really want to thank you. He says, I am as free as I have ever been in my life. Now, this dude he's locked up. He ain't getting out and he's free. How many of y'all walk around in the free world locked up as shit? And the only time you get out of jail is when you go, phone. They call it a get out of jail free card, but it expires. And you have to go back. Now, resentments. This is what you should have the most of if you do a thorough and honest 4-step. Okay, before we move on, the question, comments, a question or a comment. What's the question? Ask it loud. Come on.
Okay, so I've done a 4-step.
No, you hadn't.
Well,
You attempted one.
okay, so if I'm in
It's your fault.
get out of that. and I'm
Okay, you have to become the victor.
Because I attempted.
Well, look, let me ask you, what would you use? Okay, if you attempted to do crack and it didn't work, and they said, well, look, just do this one piece, or you can do all of this, this big cookie. What would you do? Would you go back and try the whole cookie? Girl, you better quit doing those. You know that's why they call that shit dope, right? Okay. Woo. All right, back in the book. Yeah, y'all laugh. That's what people think when you start talking that know you. It says resentment is the #1 offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have not only been mentally, that's the obsession, and physically, that's the allergy, ill, we have been spiritually sick. Now, I want you to listen to this. When the spiritual malady is another word that means disease, sickness. When the spiritual malady is overcome, be straightened out mentally. That means the obsession gets moved. And if I'm not dropping toxic poisons in my body, I'm going to start to get better physically. Now, most of y'all read it like this. I can get my bank account right, I'll be okay. If I can get a job, if I can get a wife, if I can get a husband, if I can get a car, if I can get a phone, blah, 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 blah. When the spiritual sickness is overcome, everything else follows. How many of y'all got the cart before the horse? Look, the most important thing for me today, it's not my daughters, not my wife, it's not this job, it's not my cars, not my house. It's staying spiritually fit. Because I know if I don't, I can kiss the daughters, I can kiss the wife, cars, house, the job, my dogs. I've been there and I've done it. And when it just slips right through your fingers, the guilt and the remorse will eat your lunch. Now, us alcoholics, I don't know what it is about us, but God really loves us. He wrote a book for us. Alcoholics, we have the ability to live two completely different lives. Ain't a lot of people get that chance. You have the chance to live a completely different life. And you know, being sober is not really the exciting part of this. The exciting part is changing. That's the exciting part. And when people who told you, if you ever show up on my property again, I will make sure you don't come out of jail for quite some time. And then they call you and say, I need to talk to you, and they want to make you the beneficiary of their estate. That's a pretty good change, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
How many of y'all in here? You so in love with yourself. It's not that you can't change. Won't. Comments or questions?